Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Pralaya payodi jale drutamanasi vedam vihitavahitra charitra akedam keshavadrita meena sharira jai jagadish hare jai jagadish hare jai jagadish hare. O Keshav, O Lord of the universe, O Lord Hari, who have assumed the form of a fish, all glories to you. You easily acted as a boat in the form of a giant fish just to give protection to the Vedas, which had become immersed in the turbulent sea of devastation. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrshabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyacha Kripa Sindhubhya evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So I would like to welcome everyone to our Sunday feast program. Last Sunday was Ram Navami, and His Grace Gaurang Prabhu gave a beautiful class on the pastimes of Maryada Purushottam Ram, and that constituted the first lecture in this Dasavatar series of lectures. And today my service is to speak on Matsya Avatar. So I seek the blessings of all of you gathered here, all the Varishta Vaishnavas, to be able to speak a few words on this inconceivable pastime of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Jarma karma cha me divyam evam yo veti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma na eti mameti swarjana. So the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are inconceivable. They are beyond our human intelligence. And therefore the Lord says that one who can accept Him as inconceivable, right, accept all His pastimes as inconceivable, he can, in the true sense of the word, really approach Him and go back home, back to Godhead. This is the assurance which He gives in Bhagavad Gita. So, Matsya Avatar is actually a pastime incarnation, Leela Avatar. and Lila Avatar of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Matsya appeared twice. Once at the beginning of Swayambhuva Manvantar, and then second time he appeared again, that was at the end of Chakshusha Manvantar. So a question may arise, what is Manvantar? Of course, practically all of you know what it is. So in one day of Brahma, there are 1000 cycles of the 4 yugas. Satya, Treta, Dwapar and Kali. 1000 cycles that constitute one day of Brahma. And equal number constitutes the night of Brahma. So you can imagine what must be the lifespan of Lord Brahma. But in time, even that's a flash. He is also a living entity. So that's Lord Brahma. So in one day of Brahma, 14 Manus appear. One day of Brahma. So 14 Manus in one day, so you can calculate how many for 30 days, how many for 1 year, how many for 100 years that Brahma lives. Unlimited. You cannot count. You can count, of course, with a calculator, but doesn't make. Point is that it's innumerable. So at the beginning, so those 14 Manus have certain names. So at the beginning of the Swayambhuva Manvantar, Lord Matsya appeared once, and at the end of the Chakshusha Manvantar, he appeared for the second time. And both were during crisis time. That is, when the entire universe was being flooded, when there was pralaya. So these two appearances of the Supreme Lord take us very close to pralaya. So of course nobody wants to think about it, but it will be there sometime. So this is pralaya. Both these things, these pastimes take place nearer the inundation, universal inundation. So Srila Shukdev Goswami describes Matsyavatar in the 8th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. The last chapter, the 24th chapter, is entirely devoted to Matsyavatar. So I will be taking a few extracts from this. I do not have the capacity to represent it the way Shukdev Goswami does it for the benefit of Parikshit Maharaj, but few important things I have tried to cull from the chapter, which I would like to share with you today. So, Parikshit Maharaj is receiving the nectar of Harikatha from Srila Shukdev Goswami. We have come to the now 8th canto. So he has been hearing it for a long time. And he is hearing this Harikatha with mind-boggling enthusiasm and eagerness. We just can't imagine what is his enthusiasm, what is eagerness. He has not slept, he has not eaten anything, he has not drunk anything. He is completely free from all this. Now, we cannot stay, if you miss a breakfast, we say, I have got a headache. But, in case of Parikshit Maharaj, he is hearing it. To him, this nectar of, Harikatha is providing all the nourishment that he wants on all planes of existence. Therefore, he is completely eager to hear more and more and more. And therefore, as normally it happens in Srimad Bhagavatam, usually there is an inquiry from a disciple and the spiritual master responds. That's how Srimad Bhagavatam unfolds. So here, Parikshit Maharaj says, Bhagavan shrotum ichchami harer adbhuta karmana avatara katham adyam maya matsya vidambanam. He says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, he is eternally situated in his own abode, in transcendental position, yet he descends from the spiritual world to this material world and manifests himself in different incarnations. His first incarnation was that of the great fish. He is referring to Matsyavatar. So, O most powerful Shukdev Goswami, I wish to hear from you the pastimes of that fish incarnation. And then he goes ahead and asks, O Shukdev Goswami, I know that living entities are karmagrasta. That means we living entities, we perform certain activities and then one fine day the spirit soul takes a birth, we say we are born, and spirit soul gives us the body, we say that we are dead, and in between is our lifespan. And depending upon the activity that we perform and with what consciousness we give up our body, we take up another body. So living entities keep changing forms. Therefore, Parikshit Maharaj says they are karma-grasta. Depending upon whatever activity they perform, they get a body. So if we are completely pure, our consciousness is absolutely pure, then we get a spiritual body. Then we go back to Godhead. So he is asking here, he is saying here that living entities are karma-grasta. They have to keep on taking forms. I understand that, he is telling his spiritual master. But why does the Supreme Personality Godhead, why does he have to take so many forms? That is his question. Very interesting question. And that too, in an abominable form of a fish. Why does the Supreme Personality do this? So he is asking that question. And then Parikshit Maharaj continues. Etanah bhagavan sarvam yathavat vaktum arhasi uttama shloka charitam sarvaloka sukhavaham. Then he says, he is literally pleading with his spiritual master Shukdev Goswami. He is saying that please describe complete details of the fish incarnation. Yathavat. Don't omit any details. No, he's trying to suggest to him that, I have been hearing for so many days, you may be thinking I am tired, I don't want to hear more. But no, describe them in all detail, yathavat, because narration of pastimes of the Supreme Lord, uttama shloka, are very auspicious. They are sarvaloka sukhavaham. They make all the people in all the planets happy. Therefore, O Shukdev Goswami, please describe everything in great detail. And this is the eagerness which a devotee ought to have to hear Srimad Bhagavatam Katha. That's the eagerness with which we should be hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. And Parikshit is our role model. So at the end of hearing so many Kathas also, he is not tired. He is undefeated in his eagerness and enthusiasm. So this thirst for hearing Hari Katha is actually characteristic of pure devotees of the Lord. Elsewhere in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the sages of Naimisharanya, they request Srila Sutta Goswami. They say, Vayam tu na vitrupyam uttama shloka vikrame yashrunvatam rasadnyanam swadu swadu pade pade. So the sages of Naimisharanya again are pleading in the same mood as Parikshit. They say that we never tire of hearing the transcendental pastimes of the personality of Godhead, who is glorified by hymns and prayers. Those who have developed a taste for transcendental relationship with him relish hearing of his pastimes at every moment. So this is the enthusiasm which is reflected in Parikshit Maharaj also. He is also hearing it with the same enthusiasm. So a question may arise, okay, it is accepted that the Lord keeps changing his forms. So when does the Lord, Supreme Lord, descend? When? Now, the Lord descends, is well known, the Lord descends from the spiritual world whenever and wherever there is decline in religious practice and predominant rise of irreligion. Famous verse, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuttama dharmasya tadamatmanam srujamyaham. So when there is abhyuttanam adharmasya, when irreligion becomes very predominant, it comes top, and religion goes to the pits. That's the time I advent myself. That's what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. So this is the time he advents himself. Then why does he descend? Again Krishna answers it. The Supreme Lord is very compassionate. All our questions are answered in Bhagavad Gita. He says, Paritranaya sadhunam. He says that to deliver the saintly people and to destroy demons who play havoc with the religion, I descend for that purpose, and to re-establish the principles of religion. Paritranaya sadhunam, vinashaya cha dushkrutam, dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. So Krishna is giving all the explanations why he is descending. Then why does the Supreme Lord descend himself? The Lord can send any of his representatives. Like, it's not necessary that he himself should come down. Where does he come? He could have sent anyone. And many of his jobs, killing demons, etc., can be done by his representatives. But why does he come? He comes because he wants to reciprocate with his devotees. He wants to have loving pastimes with his devotees. So Krishna advented not so much to kill Kamsa. Yes, incidentally he killed Kamsa, but he wanted to have loving relationship with Devaki. And Vasudev wanted to have loving relationship with Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj. So this is the purpose. He wants to lovingly reciprocate with them. So that's why he advanced. He advanced and he performed such wonderful pastimes that attract the hearts of the devotees and fill their hearts with joy and fill their hearts with a desire to be on the spiritual path and make progress back home, back to Godhead. That's the reason why the Supreme Lord advanced himself. Doesn't send his PA, personal assistant or some such thing or some representative. He comes himself. So once there was a discussion between, it's a famous story, between Akbar and Birbal. Very famous story. So Akbar, in a very scoffing way, he asked, he wanted to ridicule Birbal. He said, what is this, your Lord, Supreme Lord Vishnu, he has to come himself. He comes himself. Why does he have to come himself? He is the Supreme Lord. So he asked Birbal, in a very contemptuous way. Birbal didn't like it, but after all he was Jahapana. So he had to hear what he said. But he said, he thought he'll bide his time. In the meantime, he made his preparations. So he had a statue made which was identical to the son of, Akbar. It was identical in looks like. And one couldn't make out from a distance, you couldn't make out what is real and what is not unreal. He had him made. And he knew that Akbar Badshah every day would come near the lake, which he had there, and he would take a stroll around the lake. So he planned it in such a way that when Akbar was around and looking, just at that time he made a boatman bring that statue, and he threw the statue into the water. So Akbar said, my son, he has fallen into the waters. So he took out all his armories, everything that he was wearing, he just put it down and he plunged into the waters. Of course he discovered that it was not his son really. And then it was actually a statue of the sun. And then Birbal asked him, Jahapana, you had such a huge army, you had so many generals, you had so many ministers, you had me. You could have asked me to jump into the water and rescue your son. Why did you have to jump yourself? Said, same reason why Vishnu advanced. He advanced because he has love for his devotees and he wants to reciprocate with his devotees. That's the reason why he advanced. So that's why he comes himself. So how many incarnations are there? You have the Purusha avatars, you have Leela avatar, you have Guna avatar, Manvantar avatar, Yuga avatar, Shaktiavesh avatar, so many incarnations of the Lord. Apart from his unlimited expansions, there are so many incarnations of the Supreme Lord. And the Lord can appear anyhow, anytime that he desires. Why? He is Swarat. He is fully independent. We can't dictate terms to the Supreme Lord and say, you must appear at this time, at such and such a place. No. He is Swarat. He can appear anywhere, anytime that he wants to appear. And there are so many incarnations, and actually you cannot count that. So Srila Suta Goswami tells the sages of Naimisharanya, he says, O Brahmanas, the incarnations of the Lord are innumerable. They are asankhya. You can't count them. Like rivulets flowing from inexhaustible sources of water. So many rivulets can come. There is a huge expanse of water from there. So many currents, so many rivulets flow. You can't count, you can't keep track of them. So the avatars, the incarnations of the Lord are so many. So when Srila Sanatana Goswami, when he came to Banaras, he came to Varanasi to meet Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So when he came to meet Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave a detailed description. The description is actually overwhelming description of, what are the duties of a living entity, what is devotional service. Then he spoke about unlimited expansions, incarnations of Krishna, Krishna's different potencies, Ichha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, all this, Srujana Shakti. Then what are the different weapons that the avatars, hold in their hands, and which is the location of the weapons. All these details are there in Chaitanya Charitamrita, especially in the Madhya Lila. And then he goes in such details that when you read it, you realize that he is going beyond what is described even in Srimad Bhagavatam. Much beyond. Description is much more. And who is doing this narration, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is the Supreme Lord himself. The Supreme Lord himself, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahi Anya. So he is himself describing those unlimited forms and expansions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then after having described all this mind-boggling information, he says, Sankshepe kahilum Krishner swarupa vichar ananta kahite nare ihara vistar. He says, thus I have described Krishna's manifestations of transcendental forms. This subject matter is so large that even Lord Ananta cannot describe fully. So this is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying. The Supreme Lord is making this statement himself. Then again he says, Ananta Swarupa Krishner Nahika Ganana Shaka Chandra Nyayakari Dikdarshana. He says in this ways, Krishna's transcendental forms are expanded unlimitedly. No one can count them. Whatever I have explained is simply a little glimpse. It is like showing the moon through the little glimpse, through the branches of a tree. Now, if you have two branches of a tree, through the branches you can see the moon. But you do not really get an estimate of what is happening on the moon or what is happening. Just a glimpse of the moon. So similarly, he is saying here that my descriptions of the avatars of the Supreme Lord are just a glimpse. So you can imagine how inconceivable is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We just can't imagine. So after reading Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's exposition in Chaitanya Charitamrita, we realize why Srila Prabhupada said that study of Bhagavatam is graduate study. And he said that Chaitanya Charitamrita is postgraduate study. So when you read the description of the various incarnations, you are convinced why Prabhupada is saying this. It is so exhaustive information. So this is about incarnations of the Supreme Lord. So Parikshit Maharaj is specifically asking the purpose of Matsya avatar. Why did the Lord take the form of Matsya? So Srila Shukadeva Goswami is very, very happy to see the enthusiasm of his disciple, and he says, Go viprasura sadhunam chandasam api cheshvara rakshami chantanu dhatte dharmasyarthasya cha evahi. He says that, O king, for the sake of protecting the cows, brahmanas, demigods, devotees, the Vedic literature, religious principles, and principles to fulfill the purpose of life, the Supreme Personality of Godhead accepts the form of incarnations. So Shukadeva Goswami is making a general statement here. Krishna has already clarified in Bhagavad Gita why he appeared, but here he is saying that he is there, he can incarnate even for the purpose of protecting the Vedic literatures. He can appear for that purpose also. He can appear to protect a devotee, like he appears, to protect Gajendra when he is in trouble. That is described in Srimad Bhagavatam. Just to protect Gajendra, from the crocodile who is about to kill him. So he comes. He can appear for any purpose. So he is giving that reason. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead may accept any form, but he is always transcendental. Whatever his form, he is always transcendental. And then in a very, very beautiful prayer, Queen Kunti says, Janma karma cha vishmatman ajasya kartu atmana tiryak nru rushi suyadasu tadatantya vidambanam. So Queen Kunti in her prayer, she is saying, of course it is bewildering, O soul of the universe, that you work though you are inactive, and you take birth though you are the vital force and unborn. You yourself descend amongst Tiryaka, means men, Tiryaka means animals, men, Nru, then sages, Rushisu, and aquatics, Yadasu. Verily this is bewildering. So Queen Kunti Devi is saying, because Lord's pastimes are so inconceivable. He is Ajaha, he is unborn, yet he appears to take birth. So everything about him, looks as though it is contradictory. So Queen Kunti says, it is, I just can't imagine, how you descend, among the animals, the men, sages, and aquatics. So Fisher, Matsya avatar is, and he is taking form amongst the aquatics. And Srila Prabhupada comments on this verse in a very, very beautiful way. He says that all these statements prove without any question that Lord's activities, forms and deeds are all inconceivable to our limited thinking power. So this is the statement which we have to be very conscious of, that we cannot conceive of the Lord's activities. Because the Lord is inconceivably powerful, everything is possible in Him. Therefore, no one can calculate Him exactly. So, you cannot fit the Supreme Lord in a groove, You should be like this, you should work like this, you should perform activities like this. You cannot do that, you can't fit Him into a groove. He cannot be understood by Vedic knowledge, but He can be easily understood by the pure devotees. So the devotees therefore know that although the Lord appears amongst animals, He is not an animal. He may appear amongst men, but He is not a man. He may appear amongst rishis, but He is not a rishi. He may appear as a fish, but He is not a fish. Whatever way He appears, He is always the transcendental, supreme personality of Godhead. So this is something which we have to understand once and for all. He is eternally the supreme personality of Godhead in all circumstances. So it's very, very important for us to understand this principle as we go into the details of different avatars, the Dasavatas. We'll be talking about fish incarnation, but there will be other incarnations. So we should never ever get bewildered. So He is always the supreme personality of Godhead. His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj would sometimes give an example. He said that a person, owns a dog. He owns a dog. And the owner of the house, when he comes, the dog welcomes him. It barks, welcomes, goes and licks his face or whatever, jumps on him. Dog does all these activities. So, Radhanath Maharaj was saying that the dog recognizes his master whether he is dressed in dhoti kurta or or he is wearing a three-piece suit, wearing nice tie and hat and all that. For the dog, he immediately, as soon as the master enters, he recognizes the master. Similarly, the relationship between the Supreme Lord and his devotee is such that the devotee always recognizes and is always, surrendered in a very humble way to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this way, Srila Shukdev Goswami is preparing the consciousness of Parikshit Maharaj and our own consciousness for us to be able to appreciate the incarnation, the fish incarnation. So, the first incarnation, that Matsya avatar, that took place at the beginning of Swayambhuva Manvantar. And this is for the explicit purpose of Raksham Chandasam, which was described by Shukdev Goswami. It's for the explicit purpose of saving the Vedic knowledge. So, it is very explained very beautifully. So, he says that, O King Parikshit, at the end of past millennium, at the end of Brahma's day, because Brahma sleeps during the night, annihilation took place, and three worlds, that is Bhu, Bhuva, Swaha, were covered by waters of the ocean. This is what happens when there is pralaya. So, a kalpa is a day of Brahma, which we discussed earlier, which comprises of 1000 cycles of 4 yugas. This also discussed earlier. And the same number comprises Brahma's night. So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells us very beautifully what happens actually during the Brahma's day and Brahma's night. Bhutagramah saevayam bhutva bhutva praliyate ratriyagame avasha partha prabhavati aharagame. Says that again and again, when Brahma's day arrives, all living entities come into being, and with arrival of Brahma's night, they are helplessly avashaha annihilated. So this happens. This is what Krishna very graphically describes in the Bhagavad Gita. So again, and this keeps on happening again and again and again. So Shukdev Goswami continues the narration of the occurrence of Matsya avatar. He says, at the end of Brahma's day, Brahma felt, sleepy. I hope none of you are feeling sleepy now. And desired to lie down. He wanted to lie down. And as you are lying down, Vedas were emanating from his mouth, Brahma's mouth. And just then, a demon, great demon called Hayagriva. He appeared and he stole the Vedic knowledge from Brahma. Now, this is a question which bothers everyone. Why did Hayagriva demon steal Vedic knowledge? Now, this is not described in great detail in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So, I would like to express a few thoughts. I may be right, I may be wrong. Why Vedic knowledge? Why did the demon steal Vedic knowledge? Incidentally, Hayagriva is also the name of an incarnation of the Lord. Rama Krishna Hayagriva, we sing, Vibhavari Shesha in that song. So, Bhagavad Gita states that there are two classes of human beings. One category is of envious people, just very envious. And the second one are those who are obedient to the Lord. So devotees and demigods come into the category of those who are obedient to the injunctions of the Supreme Lord which come through the various scriptures. They are obedient to that. And the demoniac people or the demons, they are envious. So the envious ones are the asuras. And they are not only envious of the Lord, they deny His very existence, as was discussed in today morning, in Srimad Bhagavatam, by Vrajavasi Prabhu, discussed in detail. Said that they deny the very existence of the Supreme Lord. So they do not follow any scriptural injunctions. So Srila Prabhupada comments in his purport in Srimad Bhagavatam, he says that although every living being is a part and parcel of the Lord, still one who is a pinprick to the Lord is an asura. Now these demons, various demons, Srimad Bhagavatam is filled with pages and pages of activities of demons. And these demons act as pinpricks to the Supreme Lord. Now when a pin pricks you, it's not that you go to the surgeon, you don't go to the surgeon. But nevertheless, the pinprick bothers you, isn't it? So these asuras are like pinpricks. They believe in causing, they have a nuisance value, sometimes great nuisance value. And these demoniac people, they completely want to change whatever is there given in the scripture. They want to change everything. They want, because they are envious, they are full of pride, conceit, and they want to change. They want to make things topsy-turvy, so to say. That is asuric mentality. They do not want to conform to what is given in the scriptures. Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita are actually, they tell us how to lead our life perfectly. How to lead our lives in such a way that we are happy and the whole populace is happy. That is Vedic society basically. Vedic culture is what? Living according to the scriptural injunctions and not being unhappy, being happy. When you lead a life which is according to the Vedic scriptural injunctions, you are not miserable, you are happy. You are not only you are happy, you make everyone else also happy in the society. That is Vedic society. Now it is totally lost, of course, in the modern times. Everything has been lost very badly. So Vedas are extremely important scriptures which give us the guidelines, of how to lead one life. So they are current. Vedic literatures are current from the very beginning of creation of the material world. And therefore, Vedic knowledge is called apaurushaya. Apaurushaya means not created by human beings. It is entirely divine. So, actually, Vedas were, given, spoken by the Supreme Lord Himself. So, Srimad Bhagavatam says, Tene Brahmahuda ya Adi Kavai. So, Brahma is the Adi Kavi, and first the Vedas were spoken to Lord Brahma. And Vedas are the embodiment of all knowledge, and what is more, they glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. So the Vedas give us direction by which we can understand Krishna, and we can also understand the process of realizing Him. So therefore, the demons are envious of Krishna, and all literatures, which describe, how to attain Krishna. So they want to, mislead, misdirect the human civilization to suit their own envious purposes. That is how the demoniac tendencies work. Srila Prabhupada has spoken a lot on this subject, written a lot in the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So just to give you example, so now Hiranyakashipu, he was personification of envy, very envious of the Supreme Lord. So because he wrongly perceived that his brother was killed by Vishnu, he was killed by Vishnu, but he was he didn't like the Lord Vishnu. He was very, very envious, and after he performed great austerities and attained power from Lord Brahma, his first activity was to transgress all the Vedic regulations. He became very powerful. He even subjugated the demigod. The demigods were carrying out his orders, all orders. So Narad Muni is describing this. He says that even I, he tells Yudhishthira Maharaj, even I became subservient to Hiranyakashipu. Such was his power. So his job, was just to, flout all the, transgress all the Vedic regulations and authoritative, Shastra. This is what demoniac people do. Now Ravan, another great asura. So he wanted to build a staircase to heaven. So that people are going to heaven, by following scriptural methods. I want to do away with that. Have a lift, have a staircase going back to source. So this way, the demoniac people think in their own ways and they play with the scriptural injunctions. So this is demoniac tendency. And what is the root cause for this demoniac behavior? Envy. Envy is the root cause for demoniac behavior. It is envy of the Supreme Lord that brought us from the spiritual world to this material world. Once upon a time, we were his servants, and we wanted to enjoy with him by serving him. But then one fine day we said that no, we want to be masters ourselves. We want to enjoy separately from you. And that brought us down to this material world. Krishna said, okay, you want to do that? I am with you. Go down. It's like that. So envy is the root cause of a lot of evil activities. And it is not as though that, certain people have conquered envy and certain people have not conquered envy. Practically all of us have envy in our heart to greater or smaller extent until we become, we are on the high platform when we transcend, the modes of material nature. Otherwise, envy is there in everyone's heart. And envy can create a lot of, havoc. Now, there is this famous story of Vishwamitra Muni. Now, Vishwamitra Muni, before he became a great sage, he was actually a king. He was a Kshatriya king. And this Kshatriya king, he was son of Gadhi, who was also a king. He is called Gadhisuta. So Vishwamitra once actually, with his total army, he was going around, he visited the ashram of Vasishtha Muni. He went to his ashram. And when he went there, Vasishtha Muni welcomed him. Vasishtha Muni lived in a small little, hut, a small hermitage. His ashram was a hermitage. And he lived there. And this king, later Vishwamitra, he went and visited him with his entire army. He went there. And when he went there, sage Vasishtha welcomed the king. That's the duty to welcome a king. He welcomed him. And he made such wonderful arrangements, for his reception. So royal, arrangements were made for Vishwamitra Muni and his army in the forest. Vasishtha did not say, that I did not get adequate supply of wheat, rice, sugar. What arrangements can I make? No, he made wonderful arrangements. And why was he able to make these wonderful arrangements for him? Because he had a Kamadhenu cow called Nandini. So this Kamadhenu cow Nandini produced all that was required for, hosting Vishwamitra and his huge army. He did everything. Nandini produced all the requirements, and Vishwamitra was totally overwhelmed by the hospitality shown. He said, even as a king, I can't host in this way, and you have done it. He was very, very happy on one hand. But at the same time, envy surfaced in his heart. He said, that why should a sage, in the forest possess this Kamadhenu cow? I am the king. I should possess this Kamadhenu cow. This is what envy does to us, So it makes an entry in our heart, and then it completely envelops our consciousness unless and until, we take spiritual advice. Otherwise, envy is a deadly thing. It's a poison. Just as, we heard last Sunday how Manthara, was, poisoned by, the envy. Not Manthara. Kaikai's mind was poisoned by envy of Manthara. So it's like that. So here, Vishwamitra Muni approached Vasishtha Muni and said that, I want to have this cow of yours. Please give the cow to me. So Vasishtha Muni refused. He said that, sorry, I have looked after you well, but I can't give this cow to you. And Vasishtha Muni, had his own reasons why he was not willing to give. Because this cow was giving products which were used in the sacrifice which Vasishtha Muni used to perform. And therefore he said, I cannot give you this. So became more and more envious. No, he didn't want to take a no from Vasishtha. This is, enviousness of a demoniac mentality. We want what we want, and right now. That's enviousness. So he wanted it there and then. He wanted to possess Nandini at any cost. So he said that, no, I'll take it. And then, he stole this Kamadhenu cow. And then Nandini, of course, requested Vasishtha Muni. He says that please use your Brahma Tejas and do something about it. He's taking me away. I want to be with you for spiritual purpose. And then, of course, Vasishtha Muni used his Brahma Tejas and Vishwamitra's army, and Vishwamitra was completely defeated. Totally defeated. He was defeated so badly that he felt, what is the use of all this kingly, royal power and my army and all this? When, Brahma Tejas is, so overwhelming. So, I want to give up this. So, let me become, a sage. That's how there was a transformation. Of course, it took a long time for him to become actually Brahmarshi, many stories. But the point is that envy can touch our hearts, and that can, bring spell, ruin in our lives and ruin in other people's lives also. There is also similar story of Kartavirya, Arjuna and Jamadagni. We won't go into the details of that. So, Hayagriva stole the Vedic knowledge, from Lord Brahma, and this particular stealing was it was not at a gross level. When we talk of stealing something, we take an object away, without the knowledge of the owner, isn't it? So it's not like, robbing a bank, or, breaking into a house. In olden times, they used to break the wall and enter, or highway robbery. It doesn't have to be gross. Thefts can be subtle also, isn't it? So these days we hear of so many cyber crimes, isn't it? So many cyber crimes. So you use computer-aided thefts. You have computer-aided, thefts, and so many horrible things are done using, computers. And, you have cyber crimes, and you have, cyber police, so many things. I remember when I was in the industry, for some time I worked in an industry after my doctorate, and people always warned us, that you are having so many, you have knowledge of so many industrial processes. Beware. Somebody will one day come and copy the process. Now, in industry, people are worried about patents. You take out patents. What are patents for? Patents give you monopoly to make money. No, you have a particular process, for manufacturing a product, or whatever it may be. It could be a chemical, it could be a drug, it could be a dye, it could be anything. But you have a process, and somebody, without any effort, without any investment, just comes and steals it and starts duplicating what you are doing. Therefore, patents came into existence. No, this is subtle. He is not taking your product, he is taking the knowledge behind the product. He is taking your knowledge behind the product and cheating you totally. So this is at a very, very subtle level. Therefore, you require, patent laws, you have patent authorities, you have governmental regulations on patents. Huh? We read some time back, that our good old, haldi, that patent, was made. So many things we find. So knowledge can also be very subtly taken away. Manthara actually stole the intelligence of Kaikai. She stole the intelligence of Kaikai. So subtle level. So this way here, this demon, he took, and it was the time where there was inundation, everything was being inundated. And Hayagriva stole the Vedic knowledge, and it's a very serious matter for the Supreme Lord, because it would affect the running of the universal affairs. So, and you can't hide anything from the Supreme Lord. So Hayagriva just came and he disappeared into the waters of inundation, pralaya. He went into that. But the Lord understood the acts of Hayagriva demon. So he came, he took the form of a fish, and after having taken the form of a fish, he killed this Hayagriva demon, and he returned the Vedas to Lord Brahma. And after having done this glorious act, the Lord just disappeared from the sight. So this particular avatar, Matsya avatar of the Supreme Lord, is described by Srila Shukdev Goswami in just 3 verses in Srimad Bhagavatam. I have taken the liberty of speaking little more. It's not from realization, just because I have a habit of speaking more, therefore I have spoken more. But basically we understand from this how the Lord is so much concerned about preservation of the scriptural knowledge. And it is in this realm that we have the greatest contribution of His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, Prabhupada. So, what is his greatest contribution? He was able to enlighten the people of the Western world with Vedic knowledge, the scriptures. So, that knowledge otherwise was as good as being stolen from the humanity there, but that knowledge was given by Srila Prabhupada to all of them. So that is his greatest contribution. So we come to the second part of our class, that is Matsya avatar that took place at the end of Chakshusha Manvantar. So this is a very beautiful pastime of the Supreme Lord Krishna, very endearing, very sweet pastime. And it was to reciprocate with his devotee. Now, when there is reciprocation of the Supreme Lord with his devotee, those pastimes, really appeal to the heart. Just like, all the pastimes of the Supreme Lord Krishna, when he reciprocates with the devotees in Vrindavan, they're so very pleasing, isn't it? Very, very pleasing. Very, very endearing pastimes. So, there was a king called Satyavrat, who was a king of Dravid Desh, and who was also a great devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this Satyavrata Muni was given to performing, austerities, different types of austerities. So once, just like, we observe some austerities, not of the level of what it does. We observe Ekadashi Vrata, we fast on Janmashtami, like that. So he was performing some austerities, and it is described, Narayana Paraha Atapat Tapaha Salila Ashanaha. Salila means water. So he went through a phase where Satyavrata Muni was just subsisting on water, not eating anything, nothing like that. So he was on in that particular phase. And the Supreme Lord, his pastimes are inconceivable, as we have been discussing time and again. So he decided that he wanted to reciprocate, with his devotee Satyavrat. So, and he wanted to reciprocate with him in a very, very unique way. So Srila Shukdev Goswami begins with a very beautiful verse. He says, Ekada krutamalayam kurvato jalatarpanam tasyanjali udake kachit shefari eka abhyapadyat. So, ekada krutamalayam. Krutamala is the name of a river in the south, very holy river. So, this Satyavrat Muni, not Muni, Satyavrat King, Satyavrat, he was on the bank of this Krutamala river, and he took the river water in both his palms, Anjali, he took it in his arms, and he wanted to give arghya to the river. That's what we do, isn't it? We take Ganges water and we offer Ganges water back to Ganges. That is our worship. Ganges doesn't demand anything else. Mother Ganga doesn't demand anything else. We take our own waters and we worship Mother Ganga. So here, this particular king, he cupped his hands and he took water from the river and he wanted to offer arghya. So what happened? When he took the water from the river, tasya anjali udake kachit shefari eka abhyapadyat. So in his palm he saw a small little fish. When he was taking anjali, he picked up water, a fish came into his palms, in his cupped hands. When he saw, what did he do? Without giving a second thought, he threw it back into the river. That's what everybody would do, isn't it? Nobody is going to take it to the aquarium, Bombay aquarium. So he just put it back into the river, so without thinking further. And arghya water and fish both fell into the river. Just then he heard a voice. And that voice, very piteous voice, very appealing voice he heard. And that emanated from where he was looking, from where it is coming. It was coming from that small fish. The small fish was speaking. Tamahasa ati karunam mahakarunikam rupam yadobhyo jnati ghatibhya dinam mam dinavatsala katham visrujase rajan bhitam asmin sarita jale. So the little fish is now talking with Satyavrat Maharaj. He says, my dear king, you are Mahakarunikam. You are the protector of helpless, poor people. Why have you thrown me into this river? Why have you thrown me into this river where there are other aquatics, Yadobhya, who can easily kill me? I am very much afraid. So, this was the very appealing, tone this fish addressed Satyavrat. Now, the Supreme Lord's, pastimes are amazing. So, actually, it is described that death personified is afraid of him. But here, he is being very, very fearful in the form of a small fish. He is pretending to be very, very fearful and actually begging protection from Satyavrat. Saying that, there are so many, fish, bigger fish in this water, and they will surely eat me. It is said, Jiva Jivasya Jivanam. So, bigger fish eat the smaller fish. The small fish may eat teeny-weeny insects. This is the way of the world, isn't it? A bully in the street, bullies, less powerful people. A dog which is ferocious bullies, smaller dogs. This is what happens in the material world. Big, giant corporations, they swallow small corporations. They just, or they minimize them. They have no existence in future. So this is what happens. So here, the Lord, who is actually, as we said that death personified is afraid of the Lord, but here posing, very, very fearful, very, very fearful. So the Matsya Puran has a very beautiful verse on this subject. This subject, the Lord being fearful, says, Ananta Shaktir Bhagavan Matsya Rupi Janardana Kridartham Yachayamasa Swayam Satyavratam Rupam. So this is in Matsya Puran. The Supreme Personality of Godhead possesses unlimited potency. Parasya Shaktir Vividhaiva Sruyate. So his unlimited potencies. Nonetheless, in his Matsya incarnation, he begged protection from King Satyavrat. So the small fish is seeking protection. And a king, would never refuse protection. So at this stage, Satyavrat king, I keep on saying Muni, he could not understand that the fish was actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He could not appreciate that. But he felt very happy. So when somebody comes to you and says, please protect me, I need your help, you feel, chalo. I know, you feel a little happy that, I am able to, give protection. So, Satyavrat in his mind, he decided, I want to protect this small fish, helpless, crying out for help, so I want to protect. So, it is kind of a sukruti, agyata sukruti, wanting a desire, to serve the Supreme Lord without knowing that he is the Supreme Lord, brings in, sukruti, agyata sukruti. Sometimes we may do a good deed, not expecting anything from it, but that might bring us, some pious credits. So here the king, not knowing that this small fish is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, wanted to protect that. That was agyata sukruti, which helped him later, as we'll read. So the agyata sukruti is it has contributed to our lives. I don't know, practically everyone sitting in this temple hall must have done some agyata sukruti to be able to come to the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada, who gave us this sublime process of Krishna consciousness. Nobody can claim that, I was a born devotee, and made to order, for accepting Krishna consciousness, nothing like that. All of us have done some agyat sukruti, some activity somewhere whereby we have been able to attain the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada. So, here the question that may arise in our mind is that the king is somehow or the other thinking that I am the protector. I am going to protect. Actually, the king is a protector, but he is thinking here that I am, giving protection. Basically, the king is supposed to give protection to his subjects. A king is supposed to give protection to his subjects, see that all his subjects, are well taken care of. Their security, the security of the subjects is something which the king is supposed to be taking care of. And Srila Prabhupada has made very beautiful comments in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 7th canto. So, Prabhupada makes some beautiful statements. He says that unless a king is able to give protection, he cannot levy taxes. So, kings, levy taxes on all of us. All of us are paying taxes. And in return, our security is supposed to be taken care of by the state, by the king. Of course, we don't have kings now. We have the state government or whatever, the central government. So, they are supposed to take care of our securities and they are supposed to give us protection. If our life is insecure, if we are not getting protection, the responsibility is that of government. So, Prabhupada says, this is something very interesting, therefore I am repeating it. However, a king must not levy any tax upon the Brahmanas and the Vaishnavas fully engaged in Krishna consciousness. When I read this sentence in the 7th canto, I felt that we should make 1 million or how many million, what is the population of India, whatever. So many copies we should make and all these should go to Manmohan Singh, At least I thought, this way people will become Krishna conscious. So Prabhupada is making this very wonderful statement that it is the duty of a king to give protection. It's not a big deal if the king or the state takes care of its subject. It's not a big deal. They are supposed to do it. Now here, people put on big banners, we have done this, we have had this road constructed, this has been asphalted. I have done this. You are supposed to do it. So what's so great about it? Nothing great. But they still claim, they put on big banners and they are still there somewhere. This particular, asphalting of this particular road, on 16th road or 17th road was done by me, from my funds. And whose funds? So anyway, question always arises in our mind, who is the real protector? Who is the real protector? It's very, very important. And Prahlad Maharaj offers a very beautiful prayer on this subject to Lord Narasimha. Perhaps it would be done later on also, but I want to do it a little bit. So he says, my Lord Narasimha, O Supreme, because of bodily concept of life, embodied souls, neglected and not cared for by you, cannot do anything for their betterment. So, if the Lord decides to neglect, if he decides to, ignore and not take care for you, nothing can be achieved by anybody. Then he goes on to say that whatever remedies they accept, although perhaps temporarily beneficial, are certainly impermanent. So he gives very beautiful examples. He says that sometimes a child is sick, the father and the mother, naturally, they want to take good care of their child who is sick. They go, they may spend a lot of money, buy the costliest of medicines, to help the child. But still, the child may not survive the medical treatment that the father and mother are planning. Then Prahlad Maharaj goes on to give the example of a doctor, maybe the most brilliant person, brilliant doctor, but unless the Lord, wants the patient to live, there is no way the brilliance of doctor is going to help that particular patient. No way, absolutely no way. If that were the case, the most brilliant heart surgeons wouldn't die of heart attack. The most famous cancer surgeon won't die of cancer. So basically, unless the Lord decides to take interest, nothing can really happen. Therefore he's saying that unless you take interest, unless you take care and you do not ignore, then a person cannot hope to get. So he says that a suffering patient's anxiety cannot be relieved, and a boat on the ocean cannot protect a drowning man. A man is about to drown, but unless the Lord wants it, the boat will not be able to save him. So therefore we must understand the real protection can come only from the Supreme Lord. Bhajahure mana Shri Nanda Nandana Abhaya Charana Aravindare. So real protection could come only from the Supreme Personality Godhead and none else. Nobody else can contribute to your security. So this conscientious king, Satyavrat, he wanted to protect the fish. So he was very much moved by the pitiable words that the fish said, So he took the small little fish from the river and he put the fish in his kamandalu. Kamandalu is the water jug. He put it in that and he came back to his palace. So his days, Arghya was over, he came back home. Then what happened? Satu tatra eka ratrena vardhamana kamandalau. So that little fish which was placed in the water jug became large. So no longer could it be accommodated in that water jug. So just in one night the fish grew so much that he could no longer move about comfortably in the jug. So the fish requested the king, please find me some better reservoir of water. This kamandalu is of no use to me because I am not able to move about freely. Satyavrata, he understood the problem of the fish. He said, he obliged. So he thought, he took the fish and put him in a well, a large well. So within moments, the fish grew larger. It became 3 cubits. I understand that 1 cubit is 18 inches, which makes it, 3 cubits makes it 4.5 feet. That tiny little fish had now become 4.5 feet in size. The fish said, my dear king, this well is not a fit place for my happy residence. I'm not. All of us want, happy residence we want, in a proper place. Now, please find me a place, which is, fit for my residence. No, I have taken shelter of you, O king. So having taken shelter of you, please, the least you can do, is find me a better place than this. Now, when I read this statement of the fish, I felt that, looking at it in a very materialistic way, I was looking at it like this, that, when you are working, you get a salary. Now, what happens is that the salary that is given to you is not enough, because by the time the salary has been raised, the inflation goes up so much. The inflation, expands, and your salary remains the same. So after some time, the government announces your DA has been increased, dearness allowance has been, it comes in newspapers sometimes. And being a pensioner, I always, look at it with great anxiety, Who doesn't want, increased pension? But by the time your pension has increased, inflation has expanded and increased manifold. That is how it is. So here the fish, of course, is a very material example that I am giving, but the fish is, is increasing in its size, and the water reservoir that the king is providing is proving to be inadequate. The same happens in family life also. You are a bachelor, enjoying, your bachelorhood, and, maybe, living in a hostel or whatever. And then, you decide to marry. Then, you look for a house. Maybe if you may look for a one-room kitchen. But, by that time, your wife has conceived and about to have a child. Then you are looking for a 1 BHK. So our needs and sometimes our greed, they keep on expanding. Disproportionate to the facilities which the Lord has given us. So we require more and more and more. Similarly here, the fish, is expanding. So requested that, O king, I am uncomfortable here, so please, find me, take me out of this particular reservoir. So the king took the fish out of the well and he threw him into a lake. Now, after the fish was thrown into a lake, it became gigantic in size. It grew much, much, much bigger. The fish said, O king, I am a large aquatic and this lake is not suitable for me. Please save me by finding some reservoir of water that will not shrink. This water is not adequate for me. Thus requested, King Satyavrata took the fish to the largest reservoir of water in his kingdom. But that also proved, insufficient for the fish. And at last, out of desperation, he made arrangements for throwing the fish into the ocean. That was the largest water reservoir that the king in his intelligence, could think of providing for this fish which had taken shelter. At this time, the fish said to the king, O hero, in this water there are very powerful and dangerous sharks that will eat me. Therefore you should not throw me in this place. But of course he had already thrown. So now, in all this, the king, is consciously or unconsciously following the instructions of the Supreme Lord, who has assumed the form of a fish. So in a very humble and in a very tolerant way, Trunadapi sunechena tarori api sahishnuna. So he's tolerating. He's not arguing with the fish. What is this? You first, you did this, then you did this. I don't want to have anything to do with you. Do whatever you like. No, that was not the attitude. No? If somebody is unreasonable, what do you say? Okay, I have tolerated so much. This is the limit. No, I can't tolerate more. Get out. But no, here the king was very, very, in all humility, he was following all the instructions that were being given to him, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But at this stage, you are really bewildered. Now, a devotee of the Lord also is bewildered by the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, he had not asked this question before. He could have asked it much earlier, but he asked it now. He said, he addressed that giant fish, which by now had become something like 800 miles in size, he addressed that fish. And he said, "Who are you?" Maybe he should have asked it right in the beginning, but he didn't. So, "Who are you? Your activities are simply astonishing. My Lord, in just one day, you expanded yourself to 100 yojanas. I have never seen or heard of such an aquatic animal." By this time, Satyavrat Muni realized that he was basically in presence of none other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then he addressed this giant fish. He said, "Nunam tvam bhagavan sakshat hari narayana vyayah anugrahaya bhutanam dhatse rupam jalaukasam." He said, "My Lord, you must certainly be the inexhaustible Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan, who has assumed this form of fish just to show mercy to all living entities. Because you are the leader and destination of surrendered souls like me, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you." By now, King Satyavrat had realized that the Supreme Personality of Godhead was, having his pastimes with him, and he totally surrendered to him. Then he said, "Sarve lilaavatarate bhutanam bhuti hetava jnatum ichhami adav rupam yadartham bhavata dhrutam." Then very humbly, Satyavrat Maharaj, he said, "All your pastimes and incarnations certainly appear for the welfare of all living entities. Therefore, my Lord, I wish to know the purpose for which you have assumed the form of fish." This is the same question which Parikshit had asked, but now the king is asking this question. Now, we must understand that King Satyavrat was an exalted personality, and the Supreme Lord had chosen him as an instrument to perform this particular pastime. Very many times we think that we are in devotional service for so many years, this for so many years I have done, and Krishna, you have not revealed yourself to me. I'm chanting the holy names and I'm following the regulatory principles, I even went to all the yatras, but you have not revealed yourself to me. Actually, we have to understand that the Lord is not there for us to reveal himself at our whim. Kathopanishad says, "Nayam atma pravachanena labhyo na medhaya na bahuta shrutena yam eva esa vrunute tena labhya tasyesa atma vivrunate tanum swam." So, the Lord cannot be attained by the power of our intellect. He is not attained by our vast intelligence, is not attained by expert explanations, analyzing, you must be like this, you must be like that. No, not even by much hearing. He is attained by whom? Only by one who he himself chooses. To such a person he manifests his own form. So the Lord will reveal his form to one whom he has chosen, not at our bidding. So this is very, very clear. So in this particular case, Satyavrat Maharaj is the chosen person. The Lord wanted to reveal himself to him because of such a wonderful devotee. So you cannot dictate terms to the Supreme Lord. It may be one lifetime, it may be many lifetimes before the Lord wants to reveal himself to us. So this way, he revealed himself, and then the compassionate Lord revealed to Satyavrat Maharaj the purpose for which he had assumed the form of a fish. And not only did he reveal the purpose, but he gave specific instructions to Satyavrat Maharaj. He said, "O king, on the 7th day from today, the entire 3 worlds, that is Bhu, Bhuva, Swaha, they will all merge into the water of inundation. All of them will merge. At that time, a large boat sent by me will appear before you. You should collect all kinds of seeds herbs and load them onto this great ship. And then, accompanied by Sapta Rishis, the 7 great sages, and surrounded by all species of living entities, you should board the boat fearlessly. Now, the Lord is telling Satyavrat Maharaj, the boat will be tossed violently. You imagine, these are waters of inundation, pralaya kala. So the boat will be tossed about here and there. But don't be afraid. It will be dark everywhere. What will be the illumination? Illumination will be the effulgence of the sages. The 7 sages, their effulgence will provide you illumination. So that will be the effulgence. But don't worry, the boat will enable you to travel safely on the ocean of inundation. And then he said, you should attach that particular vessel, boat, to my horn by means of the great Vasuki, and I shall appear by your side. So very, very specific instruction. And then he said, in a very, very reassuring way, thereafter, until Brahma's night is over, all the cycles of all the yugas are over, I will pull the boat on water while thoroughly instructing you about knowledge of myself. So the Lord is saying what he is going to do, and then he is instructing Satyavrat Maharaj as to what he should be doing. He said that by my favor, Madiyam Mahimanam cha Param Brahmeti Shabditam Vetsyasi Anugrahitam me Samprashnehi Vivrita Hrudi. He said that by my favor, all the truths regarding my glories will become manifest in your heart. Thus you will understand everything about me. So the fish incarnation, the fish now who gave all these instructions, suddenly disappeared from the vision of Satyavrat Maharaj. So this is the preamble. Then King Satyavrat, he had been instructed by the Supreme Lord as fish. So he had to wait for the events to unfold. The fish he has been instructed, he has been told this will happen, but he had to wait for that. So he waited, but how did he wait? He spread kusha grass, he faced the northeast direction, and he meditated upon the Supreme Lord in the form of fish. So he meditated on Matsya avatar. So inundation, pralaya had not started when all these things were told to him. Pralaya was yet to take place. So thereafter, even as the king was meditating, what happened was that there were gigantic clouds. We read about Samvarta cloud, gigantic clouds, and they were pouring water incessantly. And the ocean swelled. The ocean swelled so much that it started moving on the land. So this is something most wonderful. So if the ocean were to cross its limits, what would happen in Bombay? If it rains heavily for 1 full day, 2 days, we know what happens. So what if the ocean were to decide, okay, from today onwards, I want to occupy this area, So the ocean starts moving, what happens? But here, during Pralaya, the ocean, moves on into land and occupies every nook and corner. Every nook and corner. This is what Indra wanted to do to the residents of, Gokul, to Vrindavan. He sent Samvarta clouds with the desire to submerge entire Vrindavan, into waters. So this is Pralaya Kala. So Brahma's night, that is Pralaya Kala. So everything, has been submerged. And the giant clouds came and the ocean swelled and they moved more and more, overflowed into the land, and this way the whole world became inundated. Dhyayan Bhagavat Adesham Dudrushav Navamagatam Tam Aruroha Viprendre Adaya Aushadi Virudaha. So Satyavat remembered, he remembered the words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his fish incarnation, and he saw a wonderful boat coming near him. From a distance, he saw it coming. Then, when this divine boat came, the saintly Brahmanas and Satyavrat, as instructed by the Lord, he took all the things he was instructed to take on the board, he took all of them and he boarded the ship. The Brahmanas asked the king to meditate upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Keshav. And he said, the Brahmanas told him that you meditate and all of us will be saved. Then while the king was constantly meditating upon the Supreme Lord, a large golden fish appeared. It appeared and into the ocean of inundation, and this extraordinary fish had one horn, and Srimad Bhagavatam describes that he was 8 million miles long. So the whole, everything in the universe has been inundated with water, water everywhere. So during the floods here in Bombay, there was water everywhere, but no water to drink because electricity had failed and water could not be pumped up. For 3 days we had no water to drink. So it's like that. But here everything is inundated. Everything is inundated. And then while the king, following the instructions that he had formerly received, Satyavrat, he anchored that boat. He tied it, to the horn of that particular fish. And then Satyavrat Maharaj offered beautiful prayers to the Matsya avatar, Supreme Personality of Godhead in the form of a fish. He said, by the grace of the Lord, those who have lost their self-knowledge since time immemorial obtain a chance to meet his devotee. In the hope of becoming happy, the foolish conditioned soul performs so many fruitive activities that simply result in suffering. However, by rendering devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, one can become free from such false desires for happiness. May that Supreme Spiritual Master cut the knot of false material desires from the core of my heart. So this and many other prayers were offered by Satyavrat Maharaj to the Matsya avatar. And one of the prayers he said that thus one regains his original identity just as a block of gold or silver sheds all dirt and becomes purified when treated with fire. May that inexhaustible Supreme Personality of Godhead become spiritual master, for he is the spiritual master of spiritual master. So he took instructions because the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself instructed Satyavrat. He accepted him as his spiritual master and he calls him Guror Guruhu. He says that you are spiritual master or spiritual master. The Supreme Personality of God, everything emanates from him. He is the cause of all causes. So he says that you are Guror Guruhu. And then Srila Prabhupada comments, he says that representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead because he does not deviate from what the Lord has instructed. Sakshad Haritvena Samasta Shastre, we sing in the morning prayers, that as the Supreme, the Guru who is representing the the Supreme Lord is as good as the Lord himself because he is instructing us in a way that is not a deviation from the eternal truths or eternal, rules and regulations which the Lord wants us to follow. So this is, and then he says, O Supreme Lord, for self-realization, I surrender unto you who are worshipped by the demigods as the supreme controller of everything. Your instructions exposing life's purposes kindly cut the knot from the core of my heart and let me know the destination of my life. So Srila Prabhupada comments in his purports that King Satyavrat shows us the way to accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead as a spiritual master. Many times Prabhupada writes that many times people complain, I cannot find a guru. Where is my guru, So Prabhupada, to such people he says that you just accept the process of Krishna consciousness. All the instructions of the Supreme Lord are contained in the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam. You just follow those instructions. So until such time as you actually meet the spiritual master, or the spiritual master accepts you, you follow the instructions of Bhagavad Gita. There is no loss. You are not losing anything. Just follow the rules of the Bhagavad Gita and then your life will be successful. So thus, King Satyavrat and all the sages who were on that particular divine ship, they were all illumined by Vedic knowledge, by the mercy of the Supreme Lord. And in this period, it is described that Satyavrat became totally, self-realized, and it is described, he took birth as Shraddhadev or Vaivasvata Manu, the son of sun god. So this is the story, or this is the beautiful narration in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which has been made by Srila Shukdev Goswami. So Srila Shukdev Goswami gives a benediction at the end of the narration. So very encouraging, for me at least. He says that this story concerning the great King Satyavrat and the fish incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is a transcendental narration. Anyone who hears it is delivered from the reactions of sinful life. So at least this benediction is given at Bhagavatam, not that we give importance to Falashruti, but he is given this. So then finally Srila Shukdev Goswami concludes with a summary, says, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who pretended to be a gigantic fish, who restored the Vedic literature to Lord Brahma, awakened from sleep, and who explained the essence of Vedic literature to King Satyavrat and the great saintly persons. So thus, this particular chapter in Srimad Bhagavat ends. I have tried to give you a summary with whatever ability that I have at my command. I may have committed many follies in describing this very beautiful pastime of the Supreme Lord. But I hope that all of you will develop the curiosity to read this particular canto on Srimad Bhagavatam after hearing this narration. So, Hare Krishna. Bhakta Vrinda